Hello again. I'm now here to introduce Dave Hooper, who is the filmmaker of the next film we're going to see. I heard about Dave from Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth just seemed like a couple months ago, which is a little close to planning an event like this. And both Dave and I, and our schedule, had to jump through a few hoops in order to make it happen that he would be here. But we did, and he's here. And I am actually going to be very brief in my introduction because Dave's film is basically somewhat autobiographical, and he explains pretty much everything you want to know in the film. So with that, I give you Dave Hooper.
Thanks, Ken, for being so tall. I think we should all give Ken a hand for organizing this. In fact, he's so organized, when I walked in, he asked, can I see your speech? And I don't have anything, because when I write it down, I get all nervous and it just doesn't come out. It's a lot better if I just speak off the cuff. So at one point, I think Ken said the word filmmaker, and I really, that's not very accurate, because I don't want to drag filmmakers through the mud by calling myself one. I'm more an aggregator of information. And I think that's something important, because everything that you're going to see here is readily findable online. We have the largest library at our fingertips. And for me, it started, I think my story probably will not be so dissimilar from some of your own, which is you asked yourself a simple question at some point. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm actually a newbie at this. It was only a little over 4 years ago, in February of 2011, when I had a normal life. Everything was normal. Watching reality television, having a few cocktails with my wife, worrying about, how we're going to pay the mortgage, the typical stuff. And then this curveball came in, and it was something that I probably, the people that are in this room can identify with this. It was something I had a really hard time putting down. And there were times where I did not even want to know this. My wife, Betsy, and I, we used to talk about how nice it might have been to have continued living in the bliss of ignorance. Does anyone else understand that feeling? So, my problem with, when you stumble across what becomes obvious once you look into it for yourself, you've got two problems. One is someone or something that you've trusted your whole life, like our government. It becomes obvious. Well, I won't say we've all trusted our government our whole life. Where I come from, we grew up that way, but not everyone was like that. But going back to it, you've got two hurdles to deal with simultaneously. One is the shock and dealing with the emotions of what you're seeing, because you're feeling a betrayal in a sense. And the other part, and this was the hardest part for me, is I could not get those close to me to listen to me. And throughout my whole life, I'd been known as at least a somewhat credible person. And my family were jovial. We laughed, teased each other, and my sister was starting to make tinfoil hat jokes. And I was laughing along with it, but I was starting to get a little pissed and angry. And my mom was doing the same thing. My wife, Betsy, was doing the same thing. And it felt very alone, and I'm guessing a lot of people in this room can understand that or have felt that on some level. And I didn't know how to handle it. And the best way I did this, and I don't want to give off the impression that I did this for the good of the world. That's a byproduct of actually what was a selfish, frankly, a selfish motivation for me, which was to restore my sanity inside of my own house. And my wife, for 2 years, wouldn't believe me. It didn't matter what I showed her. Didn't matter what sort of technical reports I pulled out. Didn't matter what clips I showed her. Nothing lit that light bulb that we've all had lit at one point. So I just started putting this arrangement of information together in the order that I came across it, so she could understand how my thought process on this unfolded. Because I had been asking her to do, you might laugh at this, I had been asking her to do her own research. I said, look into Building 7, just do your own research. And the first thing she researched were therapists for me. So that's when I knew, okay, I got to take matters into my own hands. All jokes aside, it's a serious topic, obviously, and it's so big that many people cannot get their arms around it. And we need people like the Ken Jenkins and all the people that are helping organize this event, and everyone here. We need everyone to do a little something, to be another grain of sand in that hourglass, because at some point we do reach a critical mass or a tipping point. And we're getting close. There's large portions of this country, and depending on which poll you look at, it's possible that there's many as 100 million people that are now aware that something is very, very wrong. And for ones that are really aware of what's happening, you know the emergency that this country is in right now. I had a really good point I was going to bring up a minute ago. I just lost it, though. That's what I get for not writing my speech down. How am I doing on time? Okay. All right. So when I started with this, it was, let me put it to you like this. For 2 years it was hell, and finally had put enough together where I could sit my wife down, my mother-in-law, my mom, and my sister. And my goal with this whole thing was to just show them this movie, and then I was going to get back to my real life. Because I was about to start another company, and I had been doing nothing, earning no income. I'm just basically researching online all night, and I became a smoker along the way because of it. So, and I was waiting to get my typical rejection every time I tried to get someone interested in this topic. And what ended up happening was, for the first time, all four of them stared at the screen with their jaws wide open saying, oh, like, okay, I get it. From there, all four of them ended up waking up at their own little speeds, but it did happen for all of them. And they started talking about it to their friends, and then as soon as I thought I was done with this, we have friends now asking to see this. And that kept going for another few months until we got to March, and once again, I thought we were going to be done with this movie. We were getting so many requests from people in the neighborhood to see it that we decided to throw a little party at, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. What's that? We had a little screening for 100 friends, and I was trying to kill two birds with one stone. One is get our house back so we weren't having people over for screenings every night. And the other was to see what the temperature was of the crowd, because most of the people that came that night didn't have their eyes open at all to 9/11 or some of the other things that are happening. And I wasn't sure if they were going to be throwing tomatoes at me or if this was going to be something that was embraced. And I remember saying to my wife at the time that whatever happens, happens. And through just a strange set of circumstances, we're here. So I want to say something that's a little solemn, then I want to give thanks, and then I think I'm going to say hit play. The first is, again, it wasn't just that almost 3,000 people died on September 11th, 13 years ago. The real catastrophe has been what has happened since then. And all jokes aside, I'm a lighthearted guy by nature. This subject is heavy enough, but don't confuse that with the remorse and the heartbreak I have when I hear stories of people that are still paying a price for a crime that was committed in our country. And with that, I want to say, basically, thanks to God for helping get all of us together through through whatever forces he works with, so that we can open our eyes to some of the things that are happening. And with that, I think I'm done, and I'm just going to let this thing speak for itself, unless, Esteban, you have something else you want to tell me? He's doing this, so I think...
No, we're going to have more time. We're going to have more time after the film with our man here. So let's roll it.